Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Just 1 minute here. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we're based is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. We honor all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people, and the Indigenous, Maori, and Aboriginal people across your respective regions who have been living on the land since time immemorial. Welcome, everybody, to our Learning Lab. My name is Amanda Laird, and I lead marketing and communications here at SheEO. And on behalf of the SheEO team in our community, we are really grateful that despite everything that's happening in the world today, you made time to join us on this Learning Lab, which now feels relevant more than ever as we all adjust to working from home. Today, we'll be talking all about productivity, getting more of what matters done, with our wonderful SheEO Venture Development Guide, MJ Ryan. And this is the second of our Learning Lab series that we're hosting over this week and next. And we'll share more about that at the end of the workshop. But first, we wanted to get an idea as to where everybody is joining us from. So go ahead and type it in the Zoom chat box and let us know where you are. Oh, I also forgot to share my screen. So I will do that now. Sorry about that. So excited to get started. Okay. Welcome, MJ. So for those of you who are new to SheEO, I'll start with a quick overview of what we're all about and how it works. SheEO is a global community of radically generous women working on the world's to-do list, transforming how we fund and support women-led ventures. And this work definitely feels more important now more than ever. Within the SheEO model, hundreds of radically generous women, which we call activators, each contribute $1,100 or £850 in the UK. All of that money is pooled together and loaned out in the form of interest-free loans to women-led ventures who the activators select. Each year, the money is paid back into the fund and loaned out again to support more and more ventures who are changing the world for generations to come. Over the past week, our community of activators and ventures have been totally focused on supporting each other and keeping each other in business as we navigate the advent of COVID-19 and the uncertain times that will certainly follow. We've seen ventures reallocating their resources to keep their teams employed, activators and ventures loaning each other funds to stay afloat, and other incredible acts of radical generosity. If you want to learn more about SheEO or to become an activator, by all means, visit our website at sheeo.world. We are so excited that you made the time to join us today. And this session is going to be content driven with time for questions at the end. So please use the chat box to ask your questions whenever they might come up throughout the presentation, and then we will answer them towards the second half of the presentation. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to MJ Ryan. MJ has served as an executive coach to executives and entrepreneurs around the world for the past 18 years. She is the founder and CEO of Canary Press, one of the fastest growing book publishing houses in the 1990s. MJ is one of the creators of the New York Times bestselling Random Acts of Kindness series and the author of Habit Changers, This Year I Will, and many other titles. So needless to say, MJ knows a thing or two about being productive. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, MJ.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you today for this topic on productivity. When I first agreed to do this, I'm always looking for things to help people be more productive. This was before any of what's going on right now with COVID happened. So, but it feels, as Amanda said, more relevant than ever. And what I'm going to do is kind of give you my my big picture ideas about productivity, and with a little bit of a spin towards remote, and then take more questions about remote if that's where people really want to go in the conversation. And you've got a bunch of resources. There's a quiz. Amanda's going to put it all in the chat again if you didn't see it already. And part of the resource is a really fabulous article for any entrepreneurs who have teams about dealing with remote working. So hopefully that'll be helpful too. Okay, so what is productivity? So it's the relevant output of an individual at a certain period of time. So it isn't just doing stuff, it's doing stuff that matters, right? And so the question becomes, how do we do the most relevant things in the shortest time possible? That's essentially what productivity is answering that question. So why do we need productivity help anyway? Why is this something that there have been, thousands and thousands of articles and blogs and podcasts, et cetera, on? So first, let's just look at the problem from a general point of view, with an added spin, of course, that now we're all at home working remotely. First of all, we all have too much to do. As entrepreneurs, we know our to-do list is endless. Everything seems important, and we care so much. We really want to succeed. And now that we and anyone, if we have staff, are working from home, we need every minute to count, because we've got a lot of other things in terms of family and kids, and a lot of you are juggling small children at home while you're trying to do your work. And so every minute and every dollar counts, and we all already know that everybody is more distracted and less focused. So this only adds to the pressure of like, oh my goodness, I have to be even more productive than normal, right? Another reason why productivity is hard is because thinking is actually a limited resource. So this is a piece that we have only just begun to understand from neuroscience, which is that the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain, is like a battery that gets drained over the day. It can only hold 4 ideas at once. Even in this presentation, I'm giving you way more than 4 ideas. So you're going to get your battery quite drained. Hopefully you're going to learn how to recharge the battery later on in this session. But the point is that we can only use it for a certain amount of time. And if we try to be on all the time, our IQ drops as much as not sleeping, which has been shown to be like drunk driving. And if we try to think when we are tired, our ability to make a decision decreases up to 500%. So the more we try, the worse we get. So this all speaks for understanding that we really have thinking is a limited resource, using it really well. There's going to be lots of ideas about that as we go along, and stopping instead of trying to push through. Okay. And then, of course, this one, we're constantly being interrupted. This was even before we were working home with kids. The research says that the average worker shift site concepts, that's what it's called when you have to think about one thing and then you have to go think about something else. That's called concept shifting. Concept shifting drains the battery. And it creates distractibility, irritability, under productivity, essentially. And what happens, especially when we're constantly interrupted, is that it takes us a lot of time and energy to get back to the thing we were trying to do, if we even ever get back to it at all. So all of these things work against us. And the final thing that I want to mention is that the search and the implementation of productivity tools is, in my mind, killing productivity. We think there's a perfect to-do list app, a productivity app, or the project management platform. We think the perfection exists out there, and too many of us lose a lot of time setting up overly elaborate systems that we actually don't even ever use. So the trick is to find what works for you. Simpler, the better. So you want to know, what are the things, the minimum amount of structure externally that I need to actually be productive? There's something like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of these things now, both in terms of project management and in personal productivity. I gave you some ideas in the resource guide. They are not by no means a comprehensive list. That's the point. It's really to say, these are the tools that I see entrepreneurs that I work with using and finding helpful. But really the trick is, do what is right for you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to now go an overview of where we're going for the rest of the conversation. So the first thing is I believe that we should prioritize quarterly and revise when necessary. So this is the big picture view of our time. The second key idea is do weekly overview about how you're doing. The third is making sure that you put daily practices in place for your productivity. And then the fourth is, again, use productivity tools that help you. And part of the piece of this is identifying your biggest pain points and getting help for those. So I divide the pain points into 2 buckets. And again, this is primarily looking at people who are running their own businesses. So this is primarily for entrepreneurs, but for those of us who are not an entrepreneur on this call, hopefully there'll be a lot of useful things here as well. But so the 2 buckets are project management, meaning how do I keep track of the projects I'm doing or the projects that we as a company are doing? And then how do I personally stay as productive as I need to be? So I divide those things into 2, and we're going to talk about those things separately. So one of the things that you've got in your resources from me is a little productivity style quiz. Questions like, when do I work best? What's my most productive environment? Does an external deadline or external accountability help me? The point for this is to understand how you tick, what you need, so that you then can figure out what your personal productivity support that you need. So for instance, there's many people who work better with other people. That's why there are people who write books in cafes, for instance. I've written many books, and I would never write a book in a cafe. I like silence and alone. I'm like the most serious introverted person in the universe. And so this seems crazy to me, but there are people who are extroverted who they like all of that noise and company. What are you going to do without that now? You have to stay home. You have to stay isolated. How can you get that extroverted connection while you are having to work by yourself? So we were talking about this yesterday, actually, at our SheEO team meeting. And somebody suggested this kind of a video chat thing, which is just that you see the other people there, you're all working silently together, but you get to see their faces. That can really be something that might help you. Okay, so let's go to quarterly, then we'll look at weekly, then we'll look at daily. So generally speaking, I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to use something either like the traction methodology or something called OKRs. If you don't know what that is, if you don't know what OKRs are, you're probably not ready for them. That your company needs to be a certain size and have certain complexity, I believe, in order to need that. It was developed by Google. But the traction methodology is described in a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And what it's about is about living in a 90-day world. His point is that things change so fast, and all of us know that for sure, that if you try to set a year-long goal or start to look or plan too far ahead in advance, you spend a lot of time planning unnecessarily because the world changes faster than that. So what he believes in is you have to have a destination you're trying to get to, which is like we want to do $1 million this year, as an example. So that's a goal, that's fine. And then narrow down by quarter and say, this quarter, what are the things that will move the needle the most in the next 90 days that will get us as close as we think we can get to making that big thing that we want happen? So it doesn't mean you don't set a big goal, but that you just really narrow it down to the next 90 days. And his point here is that once you do that, you then figure out what are the most important things that we can do, that he calls these rocks. And he said, if we have to pay attention to those things, if we set them clearly and we pay attention to them, then we're more likely to get them done, right? And he models his concept after this thought experiment that you see this picture here. Which is that if you have rocks, sand, and pebbles, so these are equal amount, by the way, of rocks, sands, and pebbles. And you see how on the left, the rocks are sticking out, they don't actually make it in. Whereas on the right, the exact same amount of rock, sand, and pebbles are actually fit completely in the container. And the reason is because if you put the rocks first, then the sand and the pebbles go around it. He took that metaphor and he said, this is how we need to run our businesses. We need to decide what our rocks are for those 90 days, which are the important things that will move the needle the most. And then all of the daily stuff, all the fires, all of the ordinary, got to answer this email and that email, will go around that and fill in the rest of the time. But we will get the most important things done if we set them and then we track them. So this presentation, we don't have enough time to go into all the details of this. If this sounds like something that you think about, oh, my company, really, we should be doing something like this because all we're ever doing is setting fires. I mean, putting out fires. Please don't let's set any fires. Putting out fires, and we're never getting to the important stuff. If you feel like that, this is something that I think you should really take a look at. That being said, I think we live in this moment, we're in very extraordinary times. I would move the horizon even narrower. So what do we need to do in the next 30 days or maybe 60 days right now that will increase the likelihood of survival in terms of your business, or set you up for the success once we are out of all out of quarantine? So you may need to bring the horizon in even closer than 90 days. I certainly wouldn't be thinking long term at this point, right? You really want to come in really close and asking yourselves things like, what are the kinds of, if things are slow in your business right now, which it is for most of us, then asking yourself things like, what can I do in the back end? What can we do messes that we know that we have that we've never had time to clean up? We've never gotten the systems in place because we've been too busy delivering. If that's something that's going on, then here's a perfect example of something that could be a rock for you right now, is cleaning up your back end or setting systems and processes in place that you know you've needed. That's an example of something that you might want to be focusing on right now that will be productive, because once things scale up again and get moving again, then you'll be able to be really primed to make stuff happen, okay? So that's quarterly. When you think about this method, you want to think about ruthless prioritization, essentially, and in terms of your own individual work as well. This diagram comes from a book called Essentialism, and it's about how do you decide what to do, essentially. And I think it shows you exactly what happens. If you have many things and you only have a certain amount of energy, whether this is individual or collective team energy, if you're doing just a whole bunch of stuff, this is what you get on the left. If you decide you're going to really focus and you're going to really prioritize, and everybody's efforts or all of your effort goes into one thing, you can see you can go much further. It's an obvious point, but it's really important, because what I find one of the real challenges entrepreneurs have with productivity is the ability to say no. The ability to say, let's not do this thing. Let's park this thing. Let's defer this thing. If you can't do that, then you're not going to get as far as you can get, and you will not be as productive as an individual or as a group if you don't be ruthless in terms of your prioritization. Okay, and in order to figure out what to prioritize, it's really, really simple. What is the right thing? And the question is this the most important thing we should be doing with our time and resources now? And what are the trade-offs of doing this? So this is a highly analytic process. So it's figuring out what the right thing is. Is this what we should be doing? Essentialism asks the question, is this the highest and best use of my time? Or is this the highest and best use of our time? That's how we get the right thing. Then you have to have the why. Why should we do this? To what end are we doing this? The purpose must be clear to eliminate choices. So again, yesterday at the SheEO team, one of our teammates was saying, well, why are we changing the form? What's the purpose? What are we trying to get? What kind of data? What kind of information? Why are we doing this? The knowing the why helps you actually get much better at the what. And then, of course, when. Is this the right time? So right now, in terms of where we all are in terms of our shelter in place, some things it's the right time for and other things aren't. We're not all going to go do a public event, right? It's not the time for that. It's pretty obvious, but we get more subtle in terms of what is it just the right time for. When you ask what is just the right, is this the right time, then you're also saying it's not just the right thing to do, we're doing it for the right reasons, but we're doing it at the time that we need to be doing it. These three questions are the questions that really will help you, if you're disciplined about them, will really, really help you prioritize the actions that you're going to take and therefore be more productive with what you are doing. You should be saying no more than you're saying yes. And what you're saying yes to should be the things that are going to move the needle the most. So this is at the high level of what you should be doing with your time. Okay. That's the quarterly view. Now let's bring this down to the weekly view. Okay. So this technique I learned from a guy who's considered to be the greatest organizational guru in the world. His name is David Allen, and he wrote a book called Getting Things Done. So, and it's got a whole methodology, it's got apps. If you like, he's something to look at if you want to get organized and be more productive. I find his system too complicated. I don't need it that complicated. So again, personalize it for you. But this idea, I think, is absolutely crucial. And I probably have taught it to every single person I've worked with, and we're talking thousands of people. So I really offer it to you as something that's highly effective. So it's what's called an airplane view. So once a week, either at the end of the week or the beginning of the week, some people do it Friday afternoon, some people do it Sunday evening, some people do it Monday morning, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. So often people say to me, I'm too tired by the end of the week. I can relate. So don't do it on Friday, find what works. What you do is you schedule on a meeting with yourself. And at the beginning, depending how complicated and how much work there is, you may need a half an hour or so, you may need even a bit longer, but the more you do it every single solitary week at that time, the time will take you shorter and shorter because you'll be more up to date. And what you do is you survey everything that you have going on, all of the things that you're supposed to be handling in terms of work. And you think, well, where am I with all of that? Right? What I recommend, this is not his idea, this is mine based on working with people, is what I like is to have people make a diagram of the big buckets of stuff they're responsible for, right? So, so it might be, I have to deal with all of the marketing, social media stuff, and I need to make sure we're dealing with finance, and my other big responsibility is team development, managing the team, making sure everyone's okay. All right, those are my three buckets. So in the airplane view, I would take out my diagram of those three buckets, and I would say, how am I doing in the social media? Have we got the campaigns all set up for next week? Oh, wait a minute. Am I getting the data back in that will tell me how we're going to tweak things like that? Oh, the team. All right, what have I checked in with everyone? How is each person doing? Have I set the meetings up like that? So it's essentially a planning session with yourself about what you've got going on. And the point of it, and why I call this the buckets, is so that you don't drop the ball anywhere. It's because you're looking at it all from above, okay? And as we're doing that, depending on what you're doing, you may have to think about three horizons. Short term, like next week about this thing. Medium, like within the next couple of weeks or up to a month. And longer term, like, oh my goodness, if we don't start figuring out, like I'm working with a SheEO venture right now has a product that's hot for back to school. Well, we're sitting in March, but she has to be planning the back to school promotions that her vendors are going to want from her in September. So that's the long term, right? So you want to be thinking about short term, medium, and long. I developed this piece when I was a publisher because I was the editor and I had to create books. We did 30 books a year. Okay, I edited 30 books a year. And so I had ones that were coming out next week that I had to get into production. I had ones that I had to make sure writers were writing and they were going to be good. That's medium. And then I had long-term, like I better go out and meet some authors who a year from now can give me some great books, right? So I had to always be carrying all three of those horizons forward. So the airplane view allows you to think about all of that and then organize your calendar accordingly. So I really, really recommend it to every single person, no matter what you're doing. You get a much, much more sense of relief, so you don't feel like anything's dropping. And then you have a plan for what you're going to do next week based on what you're seeing here from the airplane. All right. Okay. On a weekly basis, you really want to make sure the meetings that you're having matter. Okay. And this is especially important for those who now have remote teams, or whether you are part of a remote team or running a remote team. These are some suggestions, my top tips for making meetings matter. The first is clumping. Clumping them either in the morning and the afternoons. Why clumping? Clumping so that everybody has time to do the big thinking stuff they have to be doing on their own work, and not having that concept shifting. Remember, we talked about it drains the battery. So if you stick all the meetings all in one lump, then you've got like meeting after meeting, and you deal with that. But then you've got a whole bunch of other time on other days or mornings or afternoons. I work with a lot of companies that they do big thinking in the morning, meetings in the afternoon. I also have ones that go Tuesday and Thursdays are meetings, or I used to do a lot of work at Facebook. They have meetingless Wednesdays. Like they have an entire day, the entire company of the 100,000 people don't meet on Wednesday, so they can actually do something. So think about that. Think about your own situation, what will work for you, but creating some structure around this is very important. Okay. And then some tips that I've come across that I think really make sense is this first one. Excuse me. Write and share documents that people read before the meeting so they can discuss things more effectively. So if you're starting to think, well, what if we, I want people's point of view on X, Y, or Z, write it down, put it in the Google Doc, ask everyone to read it so that we come to the meeting already ready to talk, okay? The second thing is that every item has an outcome in advance. So if we talk about like what we're gonna do about morale when we're remote, what's the outcome? Are we gonna make a decision? Are we gonna brainstorm? Are we going to I'm going to get input as the leader, and then I'm going to decide what to do. It's like, we need to know what we're trying to get to. Too many meetings I see, people talk about stuff and they have absolutely no idea why they're talking about it. What outcome are we trying to get to? And this is very related to the next item. Always know how the decision is going to be made before you start. So if we say we need a decision on this, well, whose decision is it to make? Is it I, the leader, I'm going to get input from each person on the team and then I'm going to make the decision? Is it that I'm just here to tell you, I've already decided and I'm here to tell you what we're going to do? Do I actually want majority rules here? Do I actually want alignment, which is that we all agree that this is an important thing and that none of us will block it? Do we want consensus? We have moved as a society, and I'm saying this at least in the Western global society that I see around me in business, to what we think of as consensus, generally speaking. But how this works, and I've sat in on hundreds of meetings and listened to people think together, is this mushy, vague, talking about something and then moving on to the next thing, because we either assumed we have consensus or everybody kind of goes, yeah, all right. So, because we're tired of talking about it. And then we secretly subvert it because we never liked the idea in the first place. We just got sick of discussing it. So this is not consensus. Consensus actually is extremely difficult and extremely time consuming. And certainly there are organizations that are consensus driven intentionally, ideologically, and that's fine. And they then need to do all the work in nonviolent communication and that stuff in order to actually enact that. But if that's not you, then I would really encourage you that the place you go to at the max is called alignment, which is a sense that I can live with, everybody in this room can live with the decision. That we're not willing, that we don't have to necessarily like it, but we will not block it. We will not subvert it. And what this recommendation I always make, and this works really well when we're talking about having remote meetings where it's harder to tell what people think when you're having a conversation with so many people, when you're not actually together, is this: visual voting. This means I like this or I can live with this and I'm not going to block it. This means, I don't care one way or another, go for it anyway. And this means I disagree and I must be heard, okay? So if you just quickly say, all right, I propose that we start at 9:30 and then you have everybody show you like this. It's quick, it's efficient, you get, you can see one another when you're using a video conference like Zoom, and then you can quickly move on to the next thing if you see all the thumbs up. I really, really encourage you to do this. First of all, state how the decision is going to be made, and then if it is that you want everybody's input, you want alignment, then really do the visual voting. Your meetings will go much, much faster, and you'll have much more alignment with one another. Okay. And then finally, this is something I learned from the traction methodology that I absolutely, totally love. Don't use meetings for updates. This is why email and all the art and all of the project management tools, et cetera, exist. The point of coming together is to work out issues, problems, the intersections between what I'm doing and what you're doing that we need to coordinate on, anything that actually needs our brain power. If you're just updating, well, today we did this and then tomorrow I'm going to do that, it's absolutely a waste of time. We're together to use our brains to solve, to identify, discuss, and solve problems, or to coordinate the intersections of, can you get that to me by Friday so that I can then turn it around on Tuesday. So if you really are careful about this last one in terms of the meeting update, you will find your meetings go much faster and be much, much, much more productive because you'll be doing what you're meant to be doing when you bring a bunch of people together. The traction methodology has an agenda that specifically helps you do this. So if this is something that you think, oh my goodness, yes, I need to work on that. Ping me when we get to the chat, or ping me in the chat, and I can then later on send you a copy via email of the agenda format that Traction uses to be able to give headlines, but not go into the weeds. Okay, so all right. Let's look at now some basic, these are the most top suggestions in terms of working remotely. You've got to have some kind of shared project management tracking system. Use tools so that everyone can see what everyone else is doing, whether that's Asana, Trello, Google Docs. Again, whatever works best for what you're doing. I have found that different organizations have very different needs when it comes to this, depending on what they're producing. But of course, you have to have some shared project management thing so you can be tracking together what's happening. And then, so that's suggestion one. People are finding it highly useful to do daily check-ins and check-outs. So this creates clarity on what each person is committing to do that day. This is different than the meeting thing. These check-ins and check-outs are kind of updates. They're kind of like, today I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. And then it also provides a chance for human connections. So part of what's hard in remote working is that we don't have a chance to hang out together, just to talk and say, hey, how was your weekend? And how are you feeling? And, et cetera. And so I would really encourage you to have these check-ins as a way of asking for things and offering things that will help you stay together emotionally, as well as practically. Okay. And then stay connected. This is where communication is required much, much, much more than when we're all in the same office. There's Slack, there's WhatsApp, there's a million different, there's Google, whatever their Google, Microsoft Teams, to stay connected, but try not to have too many different ones. I think that when you have all of them, it's too much, because people don't know, where am I supposed to be looking for what? So I would encourage you as a group to figure out what works for your group. What are you committing to and what are you not committing to doing in terms of staying connected? If you are running a team, you're going to have to not only have team daily check-in and check-outs, but make sure that you're also having one-on-ones via phone or video to make sure you're checking in on how people are feeling and what are they needing. And then this other thing is, I encourage you to poll your people about the best schedule given kids and other family obligations, what's going on in terms of how we're balancing our work lives when our work is at our house. I've been seeing people who are living with their partner in one room and they're both working from home. And how do you both have video calls? I mean, it's very hard if you don't have the right space and you don't, and you've got to work out who's going to take care of the kids and et cetera. So single parents, it's, very challenging. So, I've seen suggestions, and I've even made suggestions to some teams in the last couple of weeks about things like, well, why don't you have regular, like 9 to 5? So everyone knows everyone's working during that time and then the rest is off and we won't be bugging each other. That doesn't work for everybody because of the schedule kinds of things that each individual is going through. So I would really get clear with the people that you're working with, what works for them, right? And then finally, and the most important part, I think, is please be gentle with yourself and others during this time. Share together what's working to work from home. We did a session on that yesterday, again, with SheEO team. We all shared things we had learned about how to be productive from working from home, and what we needed and what was being challenging. And I think that not only, again, does it help you feel connected and supported, but also you share great practical ideas. Okay, so this is for the team. And now we're going to talk about you as an individual, okay? So one of the things that I really encourage you to do, based on, again, the fact that our prefrontal cortex is like a battery and gets drained, is to treat your thinking as a limited resource. It's like the toilet paper you've been hoarding. And so what we want to do is make sure we got enough to do what we need to do and be as productive as possible. So these suggestions in purple are the ones that people say are the most effective in terms of treating your thinking as a limited resource. One is you do your big thinking first. Eliminate distractions. So that means turning off the notifications for Slack and WhatsApp and your social media, et cetera, so you're not distracted. Second, deal with all of your texts, emails, Slack channel, WhatsApps in batches. Because if you have the big thinking and you haven't had to concept shift at all, yay, you've really got to think about that. Then you knock off all the little things when your brain's going, yes, it's shifting from concept to concept, but it isn't having to be dragged from that into this bigger, taking you away from this bigger, more important thinking that you have. Have open and closed times. There's calendar of things you can do where you say, I'm not available from here to here. Be really explicit about that with yourself and with others. The next one's really important. If you're stuck or tired, stop. Because the two reasons. One is you aren't going to come up with a great idea anyway. It turns out that what they've discovered is that ingenuity, innovation, new idea, creative breakthrough only comes when you stop trying to figure it out. And the reason is this. Actually, these new ideas don't come from our prefrontal cortex. They come from all of our thinking as a whole, the 96% of our unconscious thinking. And when we try to focus on something, to solution a new idea, our prefrontal cortex is very good at blocking the rest of our thinking, because you just told it, focus. And so it goes, oh, I got to focus. And so when it does that, it actually cuts off access to creativity. When you say, oh, forget it, I can't figure this out. You go take a shower, you go take a walk, what happens? Bingo, the idea comes in. You sleep on it, the idea comes in, because the rest of your mind now is free to think about it, because the prefrontal cortex has given up trying. So the most effective thing you can do to be more productive in terms of your own creativity is to stop, quote, trying, and just go, I'm going to give that idea to my unconscious mind, and boom, the answer will pop up. May pop up this afternoon, tomorrow. You're not in charge of the timing of it, but it will arrive. And the more you trust that, the more you won't spend time trying. Okay, and then finally, this is a very simple one. This is why I said to do the diagram of the 3 buckets. It turns out when we create simple diagrams, and I'm talking simple, 3 circles, 3 triangles or whatever, it helps not only our own thinking, but it helps joint understanding. So even if you're on a video call and you go, oh, we could do this, and you draw 3 circles and you just put a word in each one and put it up for everyone to see, that helps thinking come together. All right, so it's a way of helping you think, and also thinking with anybody else. The other thing about on a daily basis is you have to recharge the battery. So prefrontal cortex is just exactly like a battery. It needs to be recharged, and it only recharges 3 ways: exercise, food, especially protein, rest, specifically sleep, but if you're just lying there, that's pretty good too, and fun. Those are the only 4 ways the prefrontal cortex recharges. And when we talk about food, what we tend to do when we're tired, when our brain is tired, what do? We tend to want to go to sugar or carb. But really encouraging you for protein. It's the best supplier of, glucose, because it's a more steady supply. And if your brain doesn't have enough of it, then you can't think well. So recharge the battery. So for instance, if you take all of these things into account, you would have a thing like get up in the morning, do the big piece of work without looking at all those other things, then batch all that stuff together, then take a walk, have lunch, then come back and do a big picture thing, then do all the batching like that. Okay? All right. On a daily basis, I really encourage you to create a priorities list of 4 things that no matter what happens, you're going to get done that day. And the reason I come up with 4 is because even CEOs of companies who have unbelievable amounts of help and can do whatever they want can only do four things that they're self-directed towards in a day, is what we've seen. And the priorities come out of your airplane view that you've done that helps you understand the week. It also comes out of what's happened that day, the day before. But it's really saying, I'm going to do these 4 things. And the part of how you create that priorities list is by always paying attention to the 4 Ds. And the 4 Ds are in this order. If you have other people who work with you or for you, delegate. Who can I give this to? So something comes up in your email, something comes on into the Slack channel, you got to do X, Y, or Z. First question you ask is, can I give this to am I the right person to do this? Can I delegate this to someone else? Can I postpone this to say, you know what, we don't need to do this now. It's not important. It's not relevant. It's not the, the ruthless prioritization says, let's defer this. Dump means, we're going to trash this. I'm never going to deal with this. So just forget it. And do comes last. So only after you follow thought through the other 3 gates does it go onto your to-do list. All right. So delegate, defer, dump, and do. This trick has helped hundreds of people be more productive alone, just doing that. So the 4Ds can really help you on a daily basis be prioritized on the right things. And it may just be a lot of deferring and dumping right now, right? We just have to be willing to do that given the circumstances that we're in. Okay. Again, so one of the things I did was I gave you a little productivity quiz. I referred to it a bit to understanding who you are and what you need. So this is an opportunity, because we're all sitting at home working, for you to discover what works for me. Absence of an external structure, absence of everyone else telling me how I should do things, when I should do things, why I should do things. What in fact works for me? Temperamentally, we know that some of us are early birds and some of us are night owls. So if you're a night owl, work at night. If you need, a lot of external structure, then there's a bunch of ideas here. And for instance, in terms of time blocking, is a technique. The Pomodoro method is a method of time blocking, and that's giving yourself a specific amount of time to do a specific thing. Some of us need that because we have trouble focusing otherwise. Others of us are internally focused and don't need it at all. So really figuring out, what's my formula? What do I need to be maximum productive? And then follow that. The two other ideas here, besides personalize it to yourself, is one, this first item here, a bullet, which is when you're stuck, just what's the first action? Like I have to change my website. That's huge. What's the first action? Call my web person. All right, bingo, done, right? Like that. So what's the first action? And then what's the next action? And then my last point here about multitasking. So there is no such thing as multitasking unless you're sweeping or drying dishes while you're talking or something. That's okay, because that's manual labor that does not require thinking. But anything that requires you thinking means that you're concept shifting, which is that now you're listening to me, but now you're doing something else. And that back and forth drains the battery faster. And it doesn't allow you to actually attend to either thing very effectively, which is why we see so many mistakes, is because we think we can do both, but we really can't. Okay, Q&A. Now I've got to figure out where my Q's and A's are. Okay. Help. I just clicked on this and I don't see the...
You should see a button at the bottom that says Q&A.
Okay, I see Q&A, but
I
no
don't,
open questions.
Yeah, no open questions yet. So
okay, so here we go. Please send agenda format. All right, so I will do that. Okay, questions. Someone is saying, I love Pomodoro. It helps me focus. So again, this might work for you, but might not work for you, and that's fine too. So questions? I know people have questions. Comments, suggestions? If you type them in the panel, then I'm happy to talk about it.
I have a question, MJ.
Yes, ma'am.
We're not all entrepreneurs. And so if we are working on a team, particularly maybe if we're on the corporate side, that is very meeting driven, do you have any tips on how to kind of cut down on other people's meetings when, we don't all, like, if we're getting invited to a lot of meetings?
Yes. So let me, yeah. Yep. So I'm going to tell you a story which is, I once worked with this woman and she was sent to me by her company because she was considered to be failing. And she had something like 80 employees. I mean, she had a very big team. And part of what she used to do was complain to me about Fred. And Fred, she said, Fred doesn't answer all his emails, and he doesn't come to all the meetings that he's invited to, and yet he's considered a success, and I'm considered a failing. And I answer all my emails, and I go to all the meetings that I've been invited to. I said, and can you tell me why Fred is considered a success and you're not? It's because, and she couldn't, and I said, it's because he is prioritizing the results that he wants to create, and therefore saying no to other things. Right? And so part of what I think you need to be clear on if you're being invited to a lot of meetings is, do you need to actually be there? Is this really the high? So what is the high, that question, what is the highest and best use of your time? And can you get, updated some other way? And so this is, I think, particularly hard for women. And she and I, this woman, client of mine and I really saw, she goes, well, I don't want to make people feel bad. They've invited me. They're going to be upset if I say no. If I don't respond to their email, it's rude. It's like, okay, well, you spent all your time doing that. You're not driving the results that you need to be driving in the company. So I think it really requires us being able to say no. And if anyone listening has issues with saying no, I have a list of how to say no in gracious and 10 ways to say no in gracious and charming ways. So just.
Oh, great. I think we could all use that. So we have a couple of questions and comments in the Q&A box and in the chat.
Great. Somebody's asking, what systems, apps, non-digital tools, and planners do you use to keep yourself organized? My answer is not going to help anyone else because I'm super internally organized, and all I have is this and a Google Calendar. That's it. But I'm in an exceptional situation where I don't have to track a lot of things. I just have to track people, and I've got folders for my people. So I'm not a good example of that. I think, again, I would really encourage you, there's a million online. Just go looking around and seeing what works and trying and seeing what works for you. Someone said, my business is at a standstill because I'm waiting for deliveries of material. I love that I can truly get an organized plan in place while I'm in hold. Yay, fantastic. Okay, Nason, hi. Do you know exercises increase ability to focus in general? Yes. Concentration, meditation. So there are meditation practices for all kinds of things, but concentration meditation, which is when you focus on an object, so a candle flame, a flower, etc., and then you notice when your mind has gone off of that and come back, or even the breath practice as a practice with your eyes open. If focus and concentration is a problem, don't close your eyes when you meditate, because then you're too much in your head. Pick up object to focus on, and when you notice that your brain has gone off of that object, bring it back to the object. 10 minutes a day, you'll incredibly increase your muscle of your ability to focus and concentrate. Somebody asking list to say no's. That's something that lots of people are wanting, so I'm happy to do that. Amanda, how are we going to get people their contact stuff to send them the stuff?
Yeah, we'll send out a list. We'll send everybody who is on the call or registered for the call a follow-up with the replay and all the resources that we've.
Great. So I'll get you the no list to everybody who attended. Okay.
Fantastic.
Someone's asking, waking up early in the morning is hardest thing to do for me when I don't have to go out. Any suggestion? So are you a night owl? Can you adjust your hours? Or is this a depression kind of thing, which is like without contact of other people? I know that I tend to be like a little motor that stops running if don't have a human being to connect to. And so if it's your natural timing, then switch your time. But if it's more like if I don't have the oomph, I'm not motivated to do anything because there's nobody there to do it with, then I would really encourage you to get an accountability partner. Somebody who either you work with or who you can check in with, like, okay, we're going to have a daily call at 8 a.m. Or even just an email, a text that says, hey, I'm up, how are you? How are you doing today? Or for instance, if you've got something that you have to do, stick it there, like, I have to get up and have my meeting with Fred. And so therefore you have to do it because Fred's waiting for you. So any of those things might help a person who's having trouble getting up. Yes, here's someone say, I'm in the corporate world and a lot of requests coming down to me from leadership team that are urgent. Note the quotes. How do you suggest managing priority lists that you set up for the day? Um, so this has to do the same methodology of rocks versus pebbles and sand. So what the rocks are your priorities of the day. So what I would still encourage you to say, what are the 2 or 3, whatever number of things I need to get done because these are my priorities, right? And then just looking at your day and saying, all right, so from 1 to 2, I'm going to ignore these requests and I'm going to do these 3 things and then I'm going to feel great and then I'll do the other things around it. So literally making a plan that includes them and their emergencies and you and your priorities. So okay, so that's, do you have any tips for keeping yourself accountable once you've created an organized plan when working for yourself? All right, I think there's 2 issues here. One issue is to, is the plan working? It's like, don't stick to a plan that you don't need just because you organized it. So I would say, but if it's really like, I know I should do this, but I'm not doing it, again, go to the external accountability person. That's what I would say. Okay, I work from home, so how can I delegate things like printing, mailing, etc.? Yeah, okay. It's about, yeah, you can have having an assistant, perhaps you have to find out whether you can afford that. At this point, we're all talking about virtual assistants, obviously. And you say, here's your virtual assistant would need to be licensed. So given that, which is a constraint that's challenging, what are the other things you could delegate that to a virtual assistant, for instance, that wouldn't have to be licensed? Number one. And I guess if everything ends up on you for to do, if the other 4 Ds you can't do for some reason, I don't know your circumstances, how do you batch them? How do you do the printing, mailing, all in one batch so that you've got the time again for the thinking? So you can organize yourself into morning and afternoon, or day. Tuesdays and Thursdays I do one thing, and Monday, Wednesday, Fridays I do the other thing. Like something, give yourself a structure and that hopefully will work. For all of these things, for every single thing that we're talking about, I really encourage you to think of like Thomas Edison. These are all experiments. We're experimenting to find the things that work the best for us. So when Thomas Edison was trying to find the light bulb, what was going to make a glass thing light up, he had tried 800 different things. And somebody criticized him as saying, you have failed 800 times. You're a loser. And he said, I have not failed 800 times. I have not failed once. I have succeeded in proving that those 800 ways don't work. When I eliminate all the ones that don't work, I'll find the one that does. And it took him 1,000 tries. So the point of this is, these are experiments you're trying. If I do this in the morning, does that work better? If I have someone to talk to at 8 a.m., does that work better? Don't give up if it isn't the answer. Keep on looking for the answer, okay? And assume that, believe, because I know it's true, that there is an answer. And that all it takes is doing enough experiments to find the thing that's right for you.
Great.
Amanda, you want to do a closeout?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I know I was furiously writing notes for myself because I love to hoard productivity and organization tips. So lots of new stuff learning for the first time. So thank you so much, MJ. It's really great.
You're welcome. And you're going to send out my slides, of course, everybody can use. Yep.
Yeah, we will send everything out in the follow-up email in the next day or so. And here at SheEO, feedback is really, really, really important to us. So we would love if you could take a moment to answer our quick 6-question survey that my colleague Caitlin is going to drop in the chat box. All you have to do is give us some hearts. Let us know how you enjoyed today's session. And as I mentioned, today is the second Learning Lab in a series of 4 that we're hosting this week and next. And tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time, we are going to have MJ back on for a learning lab all about resilience and surviving change you didn't ask for. So incredibly relevant. And we spun up this learning lab very, very quickly in response to needs for support from within the SheEO community. So we are doing this for everybody in these very challenging times. So please join us tomorrow. And then next week on March 31st, we will be talking about diversifying your supply chain and growing your sales through supplier diversity. So the link for that is sheeo.world/learning-lab, and it's also in the chat box. And these are all free. And if you can't join us live, then of course, we'll send you the recording after the fact as well. So thank you again for everybody who joined us, taking time out of their day, and again to MJ, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow.